about whether you'd gotten a chance to watch All In. I was like, I really hope he says no because I really did. Like, I could have watched all of it today, but I really didn't want to.
Man, I had been so busy with the wedding and everything. I ain't had any time.
Yeah, man, and like same here. I realized on what day did I realize that we're live? By the way, just people know our business. I think it was Wednesday. I think it was Wednesday. I realized that no, it was Thursday because I should have watched it on Wednesday because I was off, but I did other things, and I realized Thursday. I'm like, shit, I don't know when I'm gonna have a chance to watch this damn thing. So I'm like, I'm gonna have to do it on Sunday, which is always a bear. But anyway, welcome
Well, good.
everyone. Do what?
I can make sure it's watched by next episode.
Well, we can't next episode.
Interesting.
It'll have to be the one after that.
Interesting. Okay.
Which actually, that's okay because this podcast was we kind of fell into this uh, kind of rut of doing like current event wrestling. This podcast was never supposed to be just like a wrestling news thing.
Huh.
Well, because you can find that there's Wrestle Talk, there's PWI, there's whatever Meltzer's doing, Wrestling Observer, all that stuff. So like if you want current events, you can get that. We'll do sometime like if there's a big show, which there were a lot of big shows, so I guess I understand why. But so tonight we are talking tag teams, and then the next episode we're talking the best and worst wrestling weddings, and then we will do the original All In 2018. So we got the next 3 episodes planned out.
Okay.
And this podcast is brought to you by the Toon Talk 2.0 podcast. We'll touch on them in a moment, but full disclosure, I've said it before, I'll say it again. I didn't really hardcore get into wrestling until 2006, so I'm going to annoy a lot of people because like I'm not gonna bring up like the Freebirds, for example, because I didn't watch the Freebirds. I can't really comment on it. I've seen them in passing, but like I haven't watched enough to be like, oh yeah, and I understand they're a historic tag team, but I didn't watch them.
Um, I guess I could touch on it a little bit, but I'm like I didn't grow up watching it at that time, but I grew up watching a lot of old wrestling because of Benji.
Right, and that's fine because like there's old WWF stuff and WCW stuff and ECW stuff that I saw after the fact, but I watched it.
Yeah.
So I don't wanna be, full of crap and be like, oh yeah, the Freebirds, and I've never watched a full match of theirs. I know,
Yeah.
heresy.
Yeah.
But I got
So
I got stuff to
maybe,
do.
yeah, we all got. Maybe you can. Maybe what we can do is you name a tag team and we'll talk about it, and then we'll all name a tag team and we'll talk about it, and we'll just go back and forth that way.
Yeah, that works. I'll start out on a positive note, and just you got to talk about FTR.
I love the way FTR works because they work like an 80s style NWA tag team, and I love it. Like
And
if you took them and you put them in the 80s, they would have fit perfectly with the Legion of Doom and the Four Horsemen and all that era of the 80s NWA. I think they would fit in perfectly.
I always thought you could have taken a stable. Like let's perfect thing. If they were back in WWE as the revival right now, uh, you could easily make a stable with Orton, Cody, and FTR or the revival.
I think it would work with Cody. I don't know how much Orton.
I'm thinking in terms of like the best in-ring workers that are there right now. Overall athleticism, psychology, all that, particularly psychology.
Okay. Then if you're talking in that way, then I think I can agree on that.
It's
If,
it'd be kind of like a Legacy 2.0, but FTR, not literal legacies, but they harken back to a revival of old school wrestling. You wouldn't call it Legacy 2.0, but I think they put on really good matches, or even just pairing FTR with Cody, like you said, because Orton's not really active right now.
No, there's some rumors and speculations that doctors don't want to clear him to come back, that he should stay gone. But I've also read some rumors about how he may come back. So at this point, it's all rumors, and he couldn't. He couldn't. We don't know.
I don't know if he's a great teacher, because, like, let's be real, you can be the greatest in the world, but that doesn't mean you can teach. But
Yeah,
if he can teach, he needs to be a trainer, because the way he moves, man, he might be the smoothest in ring worker that I've ever seen.
yeah. His transitions from spot to spot, the move to move is so solid and so smooth. His transitions are so perfect.
It's the best way to describe it is it's just so smooth. He's like a snake.
Literally,
It's like he knows exactly what to do with his body, when to do it with maximum precision and timing. That if you watch for it, you'll see it, but if you don't even notice it because it's just so fluid and natural for him.
exactly.
But yeah, but speaking of tag teams though, Randy Orton, which was one of my favorite tag teams, I thought they hit a gold mine, which it was destined to die, but rated RKO.
Ooh, that was ooh.
Talk about I suspect, now I may have actually heard or read this somewhere, but I can't remember. But I suspect that wasn't supposed to be a long term thing. But then they did it, and we're like, oh, we got to milk this because their feud with DX, the Reformed DX,
Yeah,
that was
great.
that was some great. That was no miss television every week.
Here's a solid tag team, an underrated tag team in my opinion. Deuce and Domino.
Dude, you know what?
Never
I'm
that
glad.
never won the tag team titles.
Nope, but you know what? I'm really glad you brought them up because if you recall, that's 2006, 2007. WWE had like amazing tag teams.
Yep.
Kendrick and London, the Highlanders, like you said, Deuce and Domino were so good.
You still had Chavo and Eddie still that was somewhat together. I
Yeah,
mean,
you had
you,
Eminem.
yep, you had Eminem, you had Super Crazy and Psychosis.
Were they the
I mean,
Mexicools?
I think that's what they were. They came out the lawnmowers.
Yeah, that was them, the Mexicools.
Yep. I mean, there was such solid tag team in the '06, '07 era.
I mean, they were stacked, dude, and consistently good. They had consistently good mid card workers too, though, because you had like the Jimmy Wang Yangs and
Yep.
uh, I mean Kendrick was there. He was in a tag team most of the time.
I mean, Testa was still around.
Was Test good?
I mean,
Definitely imposing.
you got Umaga
Umaga was a solid worker.
around that era.
Well, and I'm glad that Solo works like Umaga, but less monster.
Yeah.
And Umaga made it work. You know what's hilarious though, and this is how good he was. So, like, I knew he wasn't like a wild man, but I remember it seeming weird. They had a back. I don't even remember what it was. It wasn't WWE programming, but it was backstage. It was this backstage video, and Umaga's back there, and he's just like, "Hey, bro, what's up?" And I'm like, "You're not supposed to talk."
Speaking of Umaga, when it was oh God, what was his name? It was Rico. Oh God, what was it? It was before Umaga was Umaga.
That was a little before my time.
No, that was right at the beginning of it.
Oh, I
That
don't remember it then.
it would have been Rico,
Rosie.
Rosie, and Umaga.
Well,
Was Rosie his name?
I thought Rosie was his name. Don't quote me on that because that would have been just before I started watching. I may have even seen Rosie in passing. I just don't remember it.
I can't remember their name now.
When did actually I gotta look because I will never forget this. This was how I got into watching wrestling on a weekly basis. Um, my well, no, he wasn't my roommate at the time. My future roommate at the time, I was hanging out at his apartment all the time, and he watched wrestling religiously. But that was back when you could buy the pay per views on DVD, and WWE was releasing all kinds of like old footage, particularly the rise and fall of ECW, and like old ECW matches. And that is where I saw. I want to say it was the second match RVD had against Jerry Lynn for the TV title. I think it was Living Dangerously 99.
I'm not sure.
It was either, it might have been Anarchy Rules. I can't remember. But anyway, it was that match. And then I started paying attention to ECW because that was when WWE revived it and Rob Van Dam was wrestling on there. And then I remember, I think it was the second episode I'd watched, and CM Punk was doing vignettes because he hadn't debuted yet. But I just so happened to
Vignette.
yeah, his vignettes were good, but I just so happened to watch the episode where CM Punk had his debut match at the Hammerstein Ballroom. And then I think it was. God, who was that match against? I can't remember. Anyway, no, I take that back. I didn't watch his debut. And it doesn't matter. I can't remember. But he did a backstage thing with Shannon Moore, and that was back when Shannon Moore was doing the Mohawk thing, and Punk called him a poser and slapped him. But I was like, dude, really? This is fucking goofy. But then I watched the match, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm down with this. And then from that week on, pretty much 3 days a week, I was at my buddy's apartment, and then I moved in to said apartment, and then it was like not even optional.
Yeah.
Because it's just like, oh, wrestling's on.
See, I fell out of wrestling. The last pay per view I remember actually watching was December to Dismember.
Ooh.
And I just at that point, like, I felt when they brought revived ECW, and they right after December to Dismember, I just started falling out of it.
Well, because that's when shortly after that is when Paul Heyman would be fired, and he will say it's not even he claims it's not even so much him being fired as him being like, if they hadn't fired me, I would have quit, because in his words, WWE didn't know how to do ECW, and I agree with that because prior to that, ECW was fantastic TV for the most part. Save the zombie spot, but I get it. It was on Sci-Fi. I get what they were thinking, but it was kind of eh. And then I still to this day love the New Breed versus the ECW Originals feud. I loved it.
Yep.
I feel like Elijah Burke was wasted. Now, granted, I think partially that was his attitude at the time, from what I understand. But, I mean, tremendous. It was tremendous stuff. Now, it got weird when Punk joined them, but then, like, 2 weeks later, he's like, I'm going to split them up from the inside. It's like, why? You could have just not joined them.
Yeah.
Because he didn't split them up, because they had a match with the ECW Originals at WrestleMania. Which was also a fun little match.
Another tag team.
Yeah, we got a little off.
Yeah, we did. That's okay. That's what we're here for.
Yeah, it's just a conversation, folks. And by the way, if you're watching, because I got to keep that open. Drop your favorite tag team ever in the comments.
Um,
Who's your favorite tag team ever?
my favorite tag team ever.
That's
Oh man,
hard.
I wrote a list not too long ago because I have a few buddies at work. We always talk wrestling too, and we're like, "Who's our favorite tag team?" Now we're doing tag team, or are we doing tag team slash stable?
Tag teams. Because stable's a whole different animal.
Wow, who would I have to pick?
I was gonna say, FYI, I don't think I can answer this question.
If I would have to pick a tag team, it would probably have to be Taker and Kane as Brothers in Destruction.
I was almost gonna bring them up. Well, you have to bring up the Brothers of Destruction.
I mean, it would have to be. I don't know. I think that would be the tag team.
I was gonna say I'd have to simmer on that. I don't think I can answer it. But speaking of WWE, which the Brothers of Destruction was almost cheating.
Yeah.
Like it's bad enough facing one of them, and then you have to face both of them. It's like this isn't fair.
Nah, not fair at all.
Um,
Man, that's just so hard.
like I said, speaking of WWE at that time, do you remember the program? I forget which WrestleMania it was leading up to. I think no, it might have been 23. Can't remember, but anyway, where Shawn Michaels and John Cena randomly won the Raw Tag Team titles.
Yeah, it was WrestleMania 23.
So good.
It was.
It was so good. And then Shawn just that's booking wrestling.
That's booking wrestling.
Oh, but speaking of Shawn Michaels, you got to bring up the Rockers.
I personally, I personally didn't really care for the Rockers.
Really? You didn't? See, that's
I would,
one. That's an old tag team I actually did watch because um, I don't. It's not the only Shawn Michaels documentary WWE did, but it was the best one. Uh, I don't remember what Heartbreak and Triumph I think they called it, but they had a few of the Rockers matches, and I was like, yeah, I would have been watching this if I'd been around at the time.
yeah, at that time I was more of a Legion of Doom or like Demolition fan when it came to tag team.
But it's like they were doing stuff that is so like that would be considered boring today, but at the time it was not normal to do what the Rockers were doing, and it was
They were doing flippy dippy bullshit before flippy dippy bullshit was the thing.
but they were doing flippy dippy bullshit that made sense.
Yeah,
Like when they do, you know, double drop kicks, they look like they hurt. When they're doing sunset flips, they actually do it to get a pin, not just to do a flip, you know.
yeah.
And it's, God, the cycle. We almost, by the way, we almost instead of doing tag teams, which was Brian's suggestion, which it was like good because that sounds more positive. It was gonna be just a bitching session about how much better wrestling was. Because man, I can remember, like again back 2006, 2007, that was can't miss TV for me.
I, like I said, 05, 06, 07 was the era that I grew up watching mainly. Like I had all the ruthless aggression figures. I remember the toys that came with the wrestling belts. I remember the double packs they had. I mean, wrestling was so. I mean, there was a time period when they had the Elimination Chamber come out. Wrestling was just amazing then.
And it shouldn't have been because WWE was the only real game in town.
Yeah,
And it was awesome. Like I
and I
said,
mean,
every okay, they had more like super often dudes dressed up like 50s greasers in matches against dudes in kilts, and it was great.
I do. Oh, what is their name?
The Highlanders.
Oh, Highlanders. Yes.
I love the Highlanders.
And then you had Festus and
Jesse and Festus! Biscuits and gravy!
yes.
I love. Oh my god, I don't remember which Luke Gallows talks about it a lot, but he tells this story. He tells the story about Vince like coming up with ideas for their tag team,
Yeah.
and apparently they're in a meeting, and Vince looks at him and goes, "What's your favorite color?" And Jesse just goes, yeller." He's gonna wear a yellow singlet. And then afterwards, Jesse's like, "I don't even like Yeller." He's like, "Then why the fuck did you say it?"
God.
I will say, though, as someone who saw them live at a show, they were fucking over. Audience chanting, "We want Festus."
Wow.
Like, they were over, dude. And I get it. I remember it's like, here come Jesse and Festus. Luke Gallows, actually, I take that back. Luke Gallows does have a podcast, Talking Shop with Carl Anderson. Luke Gallows is one of the legitimate, funniest people on planet Earth. Dude's hilarious.
Man, I remember one episode of SmackDown it was Festus in the ring and the other guy, what would you say his name was again?
Jesse?
Jesse was saying something on a promo, and there was a jobber or something in a ring, and Jesse was talking about every time he heard the bell, he would go off. So the bell would go off, and then Festus would go fucking crazy on the guy. The bell would ring again, and he'd stop.
I just love it. I don't know how we didn't laugh, because for those of you who don't know or don't remember, like literally Luke Gallows just come to the ring like this.
Yep, all the time.
But then the bell would ring and he'd pull one of these. It was so stupid, but it was great.
It was great.
Because he just owned it, man.
I tell you what, we're gonna have an episode of just the mid 2000s wrestling.
Absolutely, yep.
Because I could tell you watched a lot from that era, and I definitely watched a lot from that era growing up. We're just gonna have to do a sit down talk about the mid 2000s.
Oh, dude, it leads into another tag team. There's some gold though, because that was also when I was doing the internet show before it was cool. Weekly Wrestling Wrap Up. We did 2 seasons, and we literally it was funny. The first 2 episodes are really serious, and then we realized this is boring as shit. So then we turned it into a comedy. But leads into one of my, I think the fact that his career didn't, well, both of them really, but more so one, isn't higher, and it still might, but the world's greatest tag team, Shelton Benjamin and Charlie Haas.
Literally about to say that.
Or Team Angle prior to that.
I was literally going to say that.
Listen, the fact that Shelton Benjamin hasn't been like a big world champion yet is a fucking crime. Because...
Or at least win it once.
Do what?
I said, or at least win it once.
Once! I mean, what the hell? It's so funny. And I don't know why. Probably because he was in a tag team for so long. There's this weird notion I had in my head that he was small. But then I saw him standing next to Bobby Lashley, and I'm like, they're almost the same size. Like, Bobby's a little bit bigger, but I mean, they're almost the same size. And holy shit, if you go, I don't even know where you'd find it now, Shelton Benjamin wrestling Brock Lesnar in OVW. Shelton is a freak of nature at, again, I think it's WrestleMania 23. He's in the Money in the Bank ladder match and does the spot where there's a ladder that's tilted on the floor and it's tilted leaning up to the top rope. Dude runs up the ladder, jumps onto another ladder, and then executes, I don't remember what the move was. Freak of nature athlete.
That may have been 23, but the first time he jumped up a ladder was WrestleMania 21 when he clotheslined Chris Jericho off the top.
Yeah, I remember that spot. I think it is 23, the one I'm talking about, where he did the run up the. How he's not been WWE champion yet?
Yeah.
It's not lack of ability, and I think it's a crying shame.
Sorry.
You're good. But yeah, man, I think that's a shame. We keep going back to the we keep going back to the ruthless aggression era.
Booth is good.
Back to the ruthless aggression era. Um, I mean, you got to talk about the Dudleys.
Um. Okay, I was got brain clustered for a second. Yes, they're still a solid tag team. I mean, they just showed up on TNA 1000.
Yes, they did, which I'm pleased to announce. We'll be talking about Impact a little bit more because I figured out a way to watch it.
Ooh, you have to let me know.
Well, I can't share that with you because I'm. My parents have DirecTV, and DirecTV has a streaming platform.
Interesting.
So, because I cut cable ages ago, I watch AEW through the streaming apps, the TNT and TBS. Of course, now I just DVR it using DirecTV Stream, but it's easier. But yeah, so should be able to. That's assuming I can stay awake watching Impact. Because I mean, I'm sorry, not sorry. Impact sucks, dude. Well, not always, but for a while. For a while, back when it was TNA, I actually dug it.
Oh yeah, like 2009 and like 2011, 2012, Impact was phenomenal.
Because AJ Styles was still there.
Yeah, that's because Kurt Angle showed up.
That was in 2000. That was in 2006.
Was it in 2006?
I'm pretty sure.
Because ECW started in like 2007, 2008.
No, it was before that, 2006, brother. I remember because I remember this because again, this is when I started watching. They did the original ECW One Night Stand in 2005, and then a year later, One Night Stand 06 kicked off the new television show, and RVD was the champion.
Yeah, then they did RVD and John Cena for the main event.
Such a good match, dude. That whole pay-per-view was awesome.
Why do I keep thinking? I think every time when I think of ECW, I always think of like 08, 09. I think it's because SmackDown vs. Raw, like the video game, they did SmackDown vs. Raw 2008, and it was featuring ECW at that time, and that's when I quit playing the games.
Probably. But yeah, they started WWE CW in 06. Might be controversial, but I really dug Kenny Omega and Hangman Adam Page as a tag team.
See, I wasn't watching AEW at that time, so I'm not quite too sure on that.
It worked. I remember when they announced it, I was like, huh, that's weird. They were great, man. They were awesome. And I thought it was really refreshing to see Kenny Omega in a tag team versus the predictable route would have just had him be a singles. But no, they had some great matches. Their match versus the Young Bucks was, I forget which pay-per-view it was, but it was good. And I hate that phrase, I think the Young Bucks recently aren't getting the credit they deserve because historically they've been a great tag team. It's just here lately the booking's just been non-existent, so it doesn't feel like it means anything.
So since we're doing like pair tag teams, a great tag team together was Batista and Rey Mysterio when they were tagging together.
Yep, that was solid. Again, something that shouldn't have worked. Do you remember when RVD and Kane were tag team champions?
I do remember that because that's not too shortly after Kane removed the mask.
Shouldn't have worked.
Nope.
Oh, how about Daniel Bryan and Kane though?
Oh goodness. When they finally hugged it out, that was so hilarious.
That was good shit.
Or Big Show and Chris Jericho.
Chris Jericho and Kevin Owens
That was a solid one.
as a tag team, they might have been the most entertaining thing in WWE at the time. I remember I was kind of half-ass watching then, and I remember anytime Jericho and Owens were on the screen, I'm like, oh, watching that.
Yeah, that would have been like 2012, 2013.
Yep. I I was trying, man, I was trying. 2014, I kind of fell out of it in 2009. No, 2010. I was watching in 2009. But man, 2010 and 11 were just dog shit years. That was bad. So I got fed up with it, and then 2014 I got back into it because I discovered Lucha Underground and NXT at the same time. But and New Japan at the same time. Um, no, New Japan was a little bit later. Anyway, I tried to get back into it so many times, and that was one of the highlights. Was I was like, oh, this might get me back into it.
I think that was about the same time where I quit watching, rewatching too.
It was
Like
bad.
I stayed like up to date with like WrestleManias and stuff, like big pay-per-views. But when it came to like everyday wrestling, like I wasn't watching it.
Those were rough years, man. And actually, I was thinking today, man, because I'm watching All In back, and I'm just like, man, and this is going to be a controversial opinion. I almost wish AEW never happened.
Really?
Well, hear me out. Do you remember about really between the years of 2016 to 2018 how exciting everything was? Like, holy shit, Chris Jericho's going to New Japan. Oh,
Oh yeah.
holy shit, All In. You're going to see Pentagon's coming and facing Kenny Omega, and Cody's facing Nick Aldis for the NWA title. This, all that. And now that AEW is a thing, and especially with Ring of Honor being under its umbrella, like none of the Forbidden Door pay-per-views have been stellar, nowhere near what even the old War of the Worlds pay-per-views were like. And they had a partnership. Like, I mean, it's and like Wrestle Kingdoms were huge events with stars, like star-studded, and now everybody's under contract again. And I don't know, man, I miss those days. To me, it was just more exciting and better because again, I'm watching All In again, and these are all indie. These are all indie guys, except funny thing, for the most part, the matches are good, like really good. The psychology kind of makes sense. Like there's some indie stuff, but it's not stupid.
Yeah.
Like I don't know, man. I just feel like sometimes it seems like AEW took that spirit and then just turned into WWE Light. And it's a real shame because I had a thought today too, speaking of All In, which has some stellar tag team matches, so not to get off topic, but you know what I would have loved Tony Khan, it's too late now, but I think what should have happened with the concept of All In is I think the concept should have been the same and don't have it every year. Have it like every 4 years or every 3. Just don't have it every year, but have it be that. Have it be just an independent show, and it can be under Ring of Honor's banner. That's fine because the original All In was kind of under Ring of Honor's banner, but it was actually everybody. You know, you had people from New Japan, Ring of Honor, MLW, CMLL, AAA, all the indies, and frankly, you can extend the invitation to WWE. They won't take it, but you know, you can say, hey, who? Because All In happened so organically. It was a Bullet Club pay per view, and then like, you know how the NWA title match happened?
How?
Because they literally said NWA was like, well, wait a minute. You got Ring of Honor, you got New Japan. What about NWA? We're here. And then Impact did the same thing. Impact was like, well, wait a minute, we're here. Like that whole card came together so organically. And that is honestly what, and even Stephen Amell's like, well, fuck, I've wrestled. Let's do this.
Exactly. I mean, when you had All In, you had a huge amount of indie superstars that were top talent that you could put together matches you've never seen before. And now that you've created AEW, now have the rights of Ring of Honor, now we just see that stuff weekly and it's starting to get stale.
And the weakness of some of the performers is showing because prior to that, you didn't see them every week.
Yes. So now we have to, now there's a you have to try to make a pop with the fans every single show. Before, when you were doing it, the fans only seen you, I don't know, 5 times a year or something like that. Some of the fans don't see you but 5 times a year wrestle on a show. They're popping for you all 5 times because they're like, I want more, I want more, I want more. And then now that we see you all the time, it's like, now we just want something to make us pop.
Well, and another thing I noticed. So again, going back and watching All In at the time, it's so exciting. I didn't notice any of the like outwardly stupid crap. But now that I've seen these people evolve and seen them on weekly television. Now I notice little things. It's like, like don't get me wrong, nothing's really bad per se, but I notice things now, and I'm like, I didn't notice it when I was there because I was just so pumped to see it. But now that I've seen it so many times, that's when I start noticing the little. Frankly, I think New Japan had it figured out. Because what New Japan does is they do spot shows for people to, like, for live attendance. But then they just do big shows. They don't have like a weekly television show.
Yeah.
I like they have television show, but it's not like the WWE format. It's kind of like, oh, this happened in Hokkaido, I believe. I could be wrong, but I kind of dig how they do it here with Access TV. They take the big events and they chop them up so that they can have a weekly show. But it's an hour, it's digestible. They do edit matches for time. That's the only bad thing. But NJPW World is $10 a month. It's totally worth it. I still have it. I just don't watch it like I used to because I don't have as much time. But I think AEW's biggest. I think there's too much AEW.
Yeah.
Just like there was a time there was too much WWE.
Oh, there is, and sometimes I'm like, man, 3 days a week sometimes are just a little too much for me. It's like I gotta watch Raw on Monday, then I gotta watch NXT on Tuesday, and then I got SmackDown on Friday.
And now you've got 3 AEW shows, and don't even get me started on Ring of Honor. If I could figure out how to watch it, I would try. But and seriously, I think Tony Khan, like maybe he's working it out, but I think he's making severe mistakes when it comes to Ring of Honor because it's just become AEW dark.
Yeah, that's literally what it is.
And it's like, geez, like, can you work on streaming the entire Ring? Like, you've got the entire Ring of Honor library. You could be making so much money, and maybe that's in the works. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. But like, come on, get off your ass.
And I mean, it only took them what 6 years, 7 years to finally come out with a video game that like I literally read this article the other day, and it's like it was saying that what was it called? Like how many people are still currently playing? There's less than 500 people still playing that game on an everyday basis.
Well, I heard it kind of. I'm not going to say it sucked, but I heard that there were quality issues.
I've heard that too.
I think their mistake with that was they just started throwing it out there too early. And then, because there's a timeline for anticipation, and then you can overstay your welcome in that regard. You know, because like you said, God, they were talking for 5 years about this game, and then the game comes out, and there's no way, even if it didn't have issues, there's no way it's going to live up to the hype. because you've been talking it up for 6 years. That's why I think All In worked, because they didn't spend, it wasn't even a full year that they were talking about it. It was a few months. And it was the perfect build up. Like they sold out the arena without a card. But we got 5 more minutes. So tag teams. What are some bad ones?
Ooh, bad tag teams.
Just some head scratchers.
Oh, who are them carnival people?
ICP.
No. They were WWE. They were NXT guys.
Oh damn! I just thought of an. Oh, I know one. Oh, you're gonna hate me for this. Street Profits.
What?
I hate the Street Profits, dude.
I think them turning heel right now is it's starting to work for them.
I don't care. They're a less talented private party.
I knew you were going to say that. I have a buddy
That's
that says
what
the same
they
thing.
are, dude.
Too bad.
It's what they are. They're a less talented private party.
Has the private party won tag team gold?
No, but that's because Tony Khan can't book wrestling.
Oh, I don't know.
I thought of a really good one from NXT. Man, NXT had great tag teams.
They did. NXT was great.
But I'm thinking Blake and Murphy,
Ooh.
who had no business being as good as they were. But kudos to this, if for no other reason, the fact that and NXT did this all the time back in like 2014 to 2016, is they would have two dudes, never seen them before, never ever seen them, but the program's so good, I'm like, I'll give him a shot, and then I'm a fan before the match is over because it was good wrestling.
I mean, DIY was a solid tag team from NXT.
And I don't even like Johnny Gargano, and I have to give it up. They were a solid tag team. I need a bad one.
Need a bad one.
It's funny, though, because you don't really see too many bad tag teams, per se, because they usually don't last very long, and then you forget about them.
Okay. These two individuals, I love them. I didn't like the run as this form of tag team, but when it was Eric Rowan and Luke Harper when they were the Bludgeon Brothers.
I 100% understand what you're going with that.
Either they didn't fully...
The gimmick was dumb. Let's be real here. Why didn't you...
The idea of it was great because it came from the Wyatt family.
Well, but why couldn't you just have... And this is part of what WWE was doing at the time, is there were a bunch of... War Machine. Great tag team. Dude, underrated tag team that WWE killed. The minute they debuted on the main roster, they killed them. The Ascension. Dude, in NXT, they were fucking phenomenal.
Another one, Arthur's of Pain, Art of Pain.
There's rumors that they're coming back. But yeah, Authors of Pain.
I didn't hear that one.
I don't know how credible it is. It was something I'd seen on social media.
That'd be interesting to see them back.
Yeah, I just think they got thrown on TV too quick. Because, I mean, they got what they need. They just didn't. They just weren't polished yet. I can't think of any bad tag teams, man. They said because they just don't last long. I mean, best friends, but I don't. Again, I'm not hating on them as wrestlers per se. I think the gimmick is dumb.
Yeah. Man, I don't know off the top of my head.
Man, I can't either. It's so hard to think of bad ones because there's so many great ones. But we got to wrap this one up because you got to go work.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so I will.
One thing I want to throw in there. Everyone I will like to know there is in the works a gaming podcast. But right now I'm trying to figure out a name. I've been talking with a few other friends. Um, Now, and I got a couple minutes. I just wanted to go a little early. I can talk about it just a little bit, just to hear people out. Um, so I don't want it to be something where it's up to date every time. Like we're going to go back in time and we may do an episode of our top 5 favorite PS2 games and just go down a line of that, or NES games, or we might just do a whole episode on a specific system and like the greatest games that came from that system, or what was faulty with that system so they didn't sell well, or why they sold good. But there's definitely in the works.
You could do a memorial episode for the Sega Dreamcast.
I, I
Dude, I'm telling you, Sega's entire game system career was being at the top of the pile, but before their time, because people weren't ready for it yet.
The Sega CD was way ahead of its time.
But they've always been the superior system. Like if you compare the graphics from the Dreamcast to even the PS2, like it's vastly superior.
Some games.
Well, okay, it depends on the game, but it had a better graphics engine.
Yeah, for the most part, it did. For the most part, it did. I mean, there's definitely other systems you could throw in there that may be better, but like,
well, they just didn't have good games, and
yeah.
people weren't, and it was expensive. But yeah, I'm excited about that.
The Sega Master System, I loved playing it. My dad had one.
Holy crap, Sega Master System was amazing. I didn't have one, but oh god, this is going way back. A friend of mine had one. And an oft forgotten system because everybody loved the Genesis.
Yep, the Genesis was the thing. But like everyone forgot about the Sega Master System. You could put the cartridges in, or you could put the floppy disk in.
Yep. And it's funny because Sega's always had like, oh, this system's great. Oh, the next one's even better. And Nintendo does this ping pong thing where it's like, oh, this system's, which, I mean, this really started after the N64 because prior to that, they didn't have a bad system per se outside of like some of the Game Boy models. But then you had like, which I loved the GameCube, but a lot of people didn't like it. And then they had,
I personally didn't play much of the GameCube.
I loved the GameCube, dude. I still love it. I think it's their best controller they've ever made.
I thought it was a little clunky
compared to the N64.
Oh yeah, I will agree. The N64 controller was really weird playing it with some of the games because either you were holding it like this or you're holding at an angle.
I totally get their logic, but then a lot of people didn't like the GameCube, and then the Wii came out and just changed everything.
Oh yes.
But then the Wii U wasn't.
It was meh.
That's what I mean. So ping pong. Nintendo's done this ping pong thing where it's like great system, okay system, great system, okay system. So their next one's gonna suck.
I haven't heard anything about their next system yet. So
nah, I haven't either. But
it's been making more versions of the Switch right now.
Yeah, and then you've just got PlayStation, which does this.
Yeah,
like PlayStation.
Well, PlayStation right now is kind of like a leveling off with all like the lawsuits and stuff going on right now, and Xbox is just starting to like finally like break past the point because like Microsoft's finally winning the battle, not like a superior models and stuff, but when it comes to the games itself, Microsoft's really taken off from there.
That's really why I wasn't much of a fan of the Xbox. I don't like first-person shooters.
I love first-person shooters.
And I totally get it. If you're a first-person shooters fan, you love Xbox.
Yeah.
Not so much for me. I never got into Xbox because I didn't like the games. There's no game that was exclusively Xbox that I wanted to play, but there were plenty of games that were exclusively PlayStation that I was like, yep, I'm down to play that.
So one last thing before we cut it off. Personally, the only exclusive games that were PlayStation that I ever wanted to play was God of War and Ratchet and Clank.
Ratchet and Clank.
I
Uh,
loved Ratchet and Clank. The
SmackDown
newer
versus. Oh, go ahead.
the newer ones were meh, but like Up Your Arsenal and like the first one, they changed it from that because I don't know. I have both copies. I have an Up Your Arsenal, and then I have the other copy too.
Conker's Bad Fur Day.
Conquer's Bad Fur Day wasn't a bad one.
But that was
That
that
was
N64.
64.
Yeah,
But
uh,
then it came on Xbox, original Xbox too.
that's right. Well, I will address the sponsor real quick, so everybody's going to stop watching now. But like I said, this podcast has been brought to you by Toon Talk 2.0, where myself and Virus Fox, the lead singer of the band Again and Forever, they recently changed the name, basically talk about all things pop culture, but how it integrates into everything because it's like a big circle. It's like a circle. So you can check that out every Monday night at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time or 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time because he lives in LA and he does everything on their time. And I'm like, you really shouldn't do that because most people don't live on your goofy ass West Coast timeline. But you can check that out, like I said, every Monday. And then gaming podcast coming soon, adding to the already extensive Arate Podcast Network. Toon Talk 2.0 was just added to the roster, and we will be expanding. We're talking to a few people who want to hopefully start podcasts, get in the game, but we require dedication, damn it.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Righty, everybody. Thank you for enjoying this episode of Down the Middle. As always, please like, share, and subscribe, and let us know your favorite tag team or a terrible tag team in the comments below, and we'll bring them up on the next episode, which will be the best and worst wrestling weddings, because Brian here is getting married next week. Golf clap.
Yeah.
So we felt that to be appropriate. And if you prefer to listen to the podcast rather than watch it, you can check us out on all the audio streaming platforms, including but not limited Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Podcast Addict, Podbean, Amazon, YouTube Music, all those platforms, baby. You can just stick your headphones in your ear holes and enjoy the sweet, sweet sound of Down the Middle podcast, baby.
Yeah.